areas as well. And today what I'm going to give is some general success principles, and they're, as I say, fairly generic, but they stem across all different areas. And I tell most of my stuff through stories, personal stories of my own experience, and also just general stories I've heard. And I'll give you one to begin with. There's a young boy, and he's looking to become a priest, well, a teenager rather than a boy. He's looking to become a priest. And so he does all this study, and he's finally ready, and he goes into the church, and he's standing at the front, and he's done a lot of promotion. He's been out to the street, and he's spoken to all the community, and he's put posters up saying that there's going to be a new priest in town, and he's gone and spoken to all the community groups, and he's ready to go. They've got the church all cleaned and ready to be cathedral, and he's standing up the front and waiting, and waiting, and waiting. And so eventually a person walks in, and he's standing at the front ready to give his service. And time ticks, and he lets go as a couple of minutes past, and that's it. He's got one guy sitting on the stools. So, jump in, guys. Grab a seat. We'll sort out the rest later.
Don't worry.
So he's standing there, and he's waiting to give his sermon. And one guy walks in, and so he's sitting there, and he starts praying to the Lord, and he says, "Please, Lord, tell me what I'm supposed to do. I've done all this advertising. I've gone out and spoken to the community. And all I've got is one guy here. What am I supposed to do? I've done everything I possibly can." Jump in.
Thank you.
Feel free to, maybe if a couple of you can shuffle over with your two seats together, that'd be great.
Sorry,
that's okay. So I was just explaining the story. Priest at front, done all the advertising. One young guy sitting in the stalls, and he's waiting for this service to begin, and the priest is praying, and he's saying, "I don't know what to do. I don't know, I've done all the advertising I can, and it just hasn't worked. I've got one guy in this. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do?" And finally, the idea comes to him. I won't say that Jesus speaks to him. I'm not a religious person, so it works better that he came to the idea. And in the back of the mind, he says, "Well, give the sermon to that one." And that's the idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly what I believe that priest did, which is we have a small group here, but I'm going to deliver that to you whether there's 10 of you here or 10,000, it makes no difference. I want to give you the same value regardless of the number that are here. So I hope to try and build up some of that energy. I usually talk pretty fast and pretty loud, so I apologise for that. But I do get pretty excited about this, and I'll give you some of my background. So thank you again for coming along, and also thanks again for supporting the CFS. Was anyone here affected by those fires or came close to being affected? I was relatively close, you were relatively close. I was about 9 k's away, which wasn't too bad, and we had some friends and family that lost some property. So that's why we decided to donate this to the CFS. They may actually not take it, they've stopped taking donations, but if not, we'll donate to the Humbug Scrub Fund that'll help the community up there. So thank you for those donations. How many of you have some major goals that you're working towards at the moment? Everyone pop your hands up. How many of you have got them written down? Okay, it's usually less than the number that have some major goals. And I really want to urge you to write those down. So I just want you to have a think about one of those goals or two of those goals that are really, really important to you. And think about why it is that you want that, what it actually means to you. See, most of the things that we want, we don't actually want them for the thing that it is, but we want it for the way that it makes us feel. And I'm going to be talking a lot about this over the next 90 minutes. And the talk that I do is interactive, so it's going to get you to step out of your comfort zone a little bit. I'm going to want you to repeat some things after me that you wouldn't be used to repeating. I might get you to stand up, high five, all that sort of stuff. So it's a little bit interactive. So I want you to get a picture of your goal in your head. And if you haven't got one, it's a great time to create one. How long does it take to create a goal, by the way, or at least an idea of a goal? How long do you reckon it takes?
Seconds.
That long, that's right. So quite often we go, "Oh, I'll get to New Year's and I'll make some goals." You can make a goal like that, or at least the idea of a goal. What you'll find is as we talk later on, that writing goals properly actually takes quite some time. My goal workshop that I work through one-on-ones usually take around about 3 or 4 hours to write goals. So that it's quite in-depth, but it sets you up in a way that you will achieve them. It's that simple. So I want you to have a really good think about your goals. And I'm going to give you some phrases that I want you to repeat after me. Everyone ready to go? You've got your goal in mind? Something, make it vivid. Make sure you can see it. And I want you to repeat after me. First, I want you to repeat, "It's possible."
It's possible.
It's possible for me.
It's possible for me.
I'm worthy of achieving my goals.
I'm worthy of achieving my goals.
See, here's the problem. Quite often we look at our goals and we think, that's absolutely achievable for somebody else. And and we don't see ourselves as achieving that goal that we really want. Does that make sense? If we're in a gym, so I'm going to use a lot of health and fitness references today. If we look at health and fitness, quite often we look at other people and go, oh, but that's a skinny person, that's a healthy person, and we don't necessarily see ourselves as achieving the same things that they have achieved. And what I'm going to uncover for you today is that the difference between successful people and unsuccessful is about this much. It's very, very little. It's some daily habits. Has anyone heard the term Kaizen? You may have. It's a Japanese term, and all it means, it's been rebranded a number of times. Kaizen, K-A-I-Z-E-N, you can Wikipedia it. And it means daily, ongoing improvement. The idea is that you don't need to make big improvements to change the course of your life. All you have to do is make constant, slow, little changes. If you imagine a plane always reaches its destination. But the whole time it's in flight, wind is blowing it off course, changes in the weather is blowing it off course, it's constantly having to correct. But by making tiny, tiny little corrections, either by the pilot or usually the autopilot, it always reaches its destination 100% of the time. Unless it's Malaysian Airlines, that might be weird. So, the idea is making constant little corrections. It's not big corrections. If you imagine a golfer, you know, there's a golfer and he's got his swing like this, and he goes for it like that, and he goes straight in the trees. Does anyone else have that experience? I don't know, I certainly do. I can't play golf to save my life. I've been out with the boys, and I'm usually the laughing stock. And a guru will come up to a golf guy and say, well, the difference between the trees and the middle of the fairway is that much. And that seems really strange because if you look at it, it's 100 metres difference. But at the point you actually hit the ball, it's just a tiny, tiny little tweak. Does that make sense? The difference is so minute, and what happens is over space and time, that magnifies into a massive difference. Does that make sense for you? So the action that you perform to create the difference in the result is so minuscule, but over time and distance, then that will magnify and become a much greater result. So what I'm urging you to do through my talk today is not to make drastic action. There's some life coaches. Has anyone heard of Tony Robbins? Anyone heard of him? I'm amazed by this guy. He's one of the most well-known life coaches on the planet, and he creates some of the theories that I use. He's known for his term massive action, and that's what he promotes, is massive action. You step out of here and you do something ridiculously crazy. I don't so much work that way because I don't think it's sustainable on a long-term basis. So what I want you to do is to make some notes of things that you're going to do, small, ongoing changes that you're going to do every single day to create a habit, and I'll explain why a habit is so important. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I never used to set goals myself when I was a kid. I had what I call middle-class thinking. So I had a mediocre life, and I still do to some degree. So I lived in a middle-class area. I went to a middle-class public school. I had middle-class finances. You know, for a while there, Mum was single parent, and other times we had a little bit more money. And so that was all determined by what I call middle-class thinking. You know, people think that the difference between the super rich and where you're at is huge, but it's really not. It's just the way they think is slightly different. And so the first time I came across any success coaching or any sort of success training was when I was about 19. And I went to an amazing company that most of you would have heard of, which is Amway. How many of you have heard of them before? Okay, what do you know about them? Someone tell me something that you've heard about it.
Money products for planning.
Yep.
Pyramid.
Sorry? Pyramid scheme. What else have you heard about?
Direct marketing.
Direct marketing. What does that mean?
Well, that you actually sell directly to customer.
Yep.
And you can actually build on the business as well.
So here's what it meant for me. At 19, it meant a Ferrari. That's what it meant. It meant I looked at some of the guys that were doing it, and they were driving Porsches, and that's all I really cared about. And I got to wear a suit when I was 19 and go to coffee shops. I never even drank coffee, but I went to coffee shops. So that's all it meant for me. And over time of going to those meetings, what it meant was I got to hang around with some pretty cool people. And then I realised that I had to try and sell to friends, and I found that really, really hard. I felt like I was conning people. And that's pretty much the reputation that Amway has got. And so I didn't stick it, but what I realised later when I got into coaching was that Amway provides a fantastic training methodology. And that's what I should have got out of it. And I didn't really realise I got that out of it until much, much later. So that was really the first time that I came across any sort of success coaching. And the basic premise is that you're in control of how you think, just that nobody's actually taught you how to do it. That's pretty much the idea. So you're in control of this computer that runs your mind. And so that coasted along for a fair time. And a friend of mine came to me and asked me to help her with some challenges that she was facing. She had some physical challenges in terms of losing weight and helping with some injuries and some sports goals. But what we later realised is that that actually wasn't the challenge, that she had a lot of emotional and mental challenges that she had to work through. And over time, I was able to help her overcome those, and I really got some juice out of that. Come back to that in a second. I was reading a book by Richard Branson, and it's, I've got the name here, it's called Screw It, Let's Do It. Has anyone read that? It's a great book. It's not a real big book, but it's essentially Richard Branson's story. And what he did was he started as a young guy. He started with Virgin Records, which was this tiny little store, and grew. And the story talks about his childhood and how he always had this entrepreneurial idea, even though the way he runs is completely different to anybody else. So this National Achievers Congress came up, and he was going to be one of the people there. So I simply went along because I just wanted to meet Richard Branson, because he was a bit of an inspiration to me. And they had a guy at the start called Les Brown. You might want to write that down. Les Brown is his name. Stick his name into YouTube, you will love it. What you may not realise, if you look in motivational motivational speech or anything like that, you'll find all sorts of montages of sports people working their heart out and a talk in the background. 9 times out of 10, that talk was Les Brown. Okay, he's an amazing motivational speaker. And he started at the National Achievers Congress, which I think was a 3 or 4 day event, long days where you sat, and essentially they tried to sell you different ideas to change your life. And some of the ideas were real estate options, stock exchange, foreign exchange. There was how to make $1 million on eBay. There was all sorts of different courses. And those courses ranged in price from $4,000 to $12,000 that you had to pay on the day. Right, so that was basically the idea. So as you can imagine, over the course of the 3 days, the numbers went from a couple of thousand down to a few hundred, because people got sick of the sales pitch all the time. But there was something that kept me there, because intertwined with their pitch was a whole load of great learning. So that really appealed to me, so I ended up sticking it out. And I remember having a conversation with my wife, Emily. I rang her up, it was at the Royal Showgrounds, and I was standing by the main arena. I gave her a call, I said, I want to do this foreign exchange course, which is currency exchanging. I want to do this course, and it was $4,000 and I needed it then and there. So, as you can imagine, middle class family, that's a bit of a problem. How many of you would ask your partner for $4,000 on the spot? Not many. Neither would I normally. But there was something in me that there was a switch that flipped the decision to say, I've had enough of this life that I've got, and something has to change. And I don't know what it is, and this thing happened to be there. I don't know what it is that needs to change, but something made the decision. I ended up screaming down the phone, just saying, oh, well, actually I won't use the words that I used to her. They're expletive. But it was, things have to change. I got to that point where I felt a knot in my gut. Have you had that feeling before, when you feel that knot and it's massive frustration? See, good things only ever come out of frustration. They never come when you're comfortable. I'll talk about that a little bit more as well. So I got to that point where I was absolutely frustrated. I was upset. I didn't want to stay where I was, and I wanted to move, but I didn't really know how I was going to move. I just know something had to change. There was no two ways about it. Anyway, that didn't eventuate. I didn't spend the money, and I didn't do the course. So back to where I was going. I was working with this person, and I achieved some massive results for her, and she worked really hard and achieved some massive results for herself. And she's a completely different person now. Even when you talk to her, the way she talks is entirely different. To the point she's actually started her own motivational page on Facebook, which is fantastic because it completely switched her negative thinking. And so I loved the results. I fell in love with the results that I got from her. And so I said, well, if I want to do this, I need to find a way to do this more. At the time, still, I had a day job. I was running a martial arts school. I've got 2 young kids and a wife, so it was very hard for me to find the time to do more coaching and help people. And the clear answer was, well, you've got to get rid of your day job. So that's essentially the journey that I'm on now, and I'm trying to do that now. So I decided that that's what I was going to do, but I couldn't just do it on my own. It's really hard sometimes when you want to do something and you don't really have a concept of how it works. You need to find people that are going to help you, that have been there before. So I didn't have any friends that had really done it, and I didn't really have any friends that were entrepreneurs either. So I asked around, and I came across a life coach called Dean Evans, and I spent some time with him. And we went through a whole lot of strategies, and what I wanted from him was the how. How do you do it? What sort of thing, what business systems do you have in place? What does your day look like on a daily basis? And at the end of the day, none of that mattered. What he really wanted to know was why. Why do you want to do it? Why is it important to you? And so I talked about the results that I was getting and with this other person, and in the end he said to me, well, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for my approval? Because you're not going to get it. Just go and do it. Don't worry about preparing, just jump in and do it. And so that's exactly what I did. So what he convinced me was that I was able to do it. See, I thought I needed a certificate on the wall. I thought I needed someone's approval before I could go and jump, simply because no one had shook my hand and said, well done, you're now ready to go. I wasn't ready to go. And he eventually put it on me and said, well, you don't need someone else's approval, just jump in and do it. And so I want to urge you to do that when you're looking at something. Quite often, you know, in fact, this is a topic that came up on my Facebook page. If you're not on there, the address is on that DVD that you can all take home with you. Go on the Facebook page. I put messages up there daily, and I put videos up there from time to time. And this was a topic that came up recently about what happens when I believe in myself but others don't believe me. How do I overcome that? Okay, and in this talk I'm going to be running through that. But you have to believe in yourself. And he convinced me that I could believe in myself. And I went out and did it. And I'm still not 100% there, but I'm working through that now, and doing today, the speech today is another example of that. So when I started looking into it, there's lots of different types of, who's heard of the term life coaching before? Most of you. The idea, most people, how many of you know exactly what it is? Good, me neither. So it's vague. No one really knows, but the general idea is that we think people have some conflicts in their own mind, and we help people to find those conflicts and straighten them out so that they can go on the path. So we just help people move themselves out of the way. That's basically the gist of it. Everything you need is already in you. We just want to redirect some of it. And where was I going with that? So I started looking at all the different types of life coaching. And there's people that work with managers, there's people that work one-on-one with personal problems, whether it be addictions or whatever. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I eventually went through it and I said, okay, here's what I want to do. I want to do motivational speaking to a group, which is what I'm doing today. And I want to do one-on-one coaching. And the idea is that the motivational speaking to the group helps people get that start they need, that kick in the butt to move forward to the next level, to what it is that you want. And then the one-on-one coaching was to really get in depth to what people's challenges are. But the problem is that if you look at most motivational speakers, and maybe some that you know, well, I mentioned Tony Robbins before and Les Brown, they both came from a bad background. Les Brown was dumped in a building when he was a newborn. Tony Robbins was absolutely poor and he had an alcoholic father. Some other people you may have heard of is Oprah. You know, Oprah does a lot of talking, and she had one of the worst childhoods on the planet. You know, she was locked in a basement, she was raped, she was abused, she was a teenage, she was pregnant as a teenager. She was born to a teenage mother, so she had a horrible life. And we look at a lot of these things and see that a lot of these people that are great and make huge things of their life start from massive adversity. And what happens is they get used to overcoming that adversity as a young age, and then they start to overcome it. The challenge I had in my head, or the story I told myself, is that I could never be a motivational speaker because I had a pretty good childhood. What am I ever going to tell people about overcoming adversity when I never really had to do it? I never had major problems in my life. I had a family that was generally supportive. My parents are split up. I had money, although it wasn't a lot, but we could get by. We always had a roof over our head, we always had food, and we always had a car. So generally speaking, we were okay. I always went to school. And so I put this story in my own head about why I couldn't succeed, and it was all crap. So I thought back to what my coach had told me, and he gave me a quote that I'd like you to write down. And I find that this gave me a story that is far better than overcoming adversity and will help me to appeal to 90% of people. And that is, the biggest thing that gets in the way of a great life is a good life. It's far harder to overcome a good life than it is to overcome a terrible life. And I'll explain why that's the case. Because our minds are designed to protect us. That's its number one function, is to protect you. And the way it does that is it keeps you comfortable. And I'm talking in a little while about congruency. Congruency is when we are consistent with our own image for ourselves. And that helps us to feel safe. And that's actually what keeps us in poor habits. So one of the hardest things to overcome is having a good life. If you're just a little bit overweight, you don't tend to do much about it. But when you get grossly overweight, there reaches a point when you go, I've had it, enough is enough, that's the line for me, and you draw the line, and then you shoot through and you succeed. Has everyone had that experience? So sometimes you're just a little bit upset and nothing ever changes. And that's one of the hardest things to overcome, being relatively happy. But to be dramatically happy, to expand your life way beyond what you expected it could be, it's hard to overcome when, it's okay, it's not so bad. I'm doing okay, I've got money in the bank, I'm alright. So what I'm going to impress upon you today is to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. To make uncomfortable your new friend, so that you're constantly seeking for something, constantly pushing. Now that doesn't mean being unhappy. You can be uncomfortable and stretching and still be grateful. See, grateful is one of the best states that you can ever be in. When I say state, I'm talking about an emotional state. When you're grateful, you will respond far better as a human being to anything that happens in your life than any other state. Being grateful for what you have. And you can always be grateful. There are people who have far worse circumstances than us that are still grateful. They find a way. It has nothing to do with your circumstances. It's to do with how you manage the circumstances in your mind. And again, it comes back to what I said before, is no one trains us how to use this computer we have in our head, but it's everything that it drives everything that's in our life. So you can achieve anything that you believe you can achieve. I'll tell another story for you. There's a young boy, and he talks to his granddad, and his granddad says to him, listen son, there's two wolves that live in all of us, and they fight constantly. And one wolf is evil, he's hatred, he's greed, he's nastiness. And the other wolf is help, friendliness, politeness. And these wolves continually fight. And so the boy thinks about it for a minute and tries to understand what his grandfather's saying. He goes away and he understands, he realises that what he's talking about is the good in him and the bad in him, and these two are constantly in conflict. And so he goes back to his granddad and he says, Pop, I understand what you're saying, that there's good and bad in all of us, and these are continually fighting each other, but I just don't understand which one wins. And Pop looks him in the eye and he says, whichever one you feed the most. So the idea is that whichever one you feed, whether you feed gratitude or whether you feed greed, then that's the most that you will see. Has anyone ever bought a car and then after that you always see that car on the road? Have you had that experience before? There's a thing in your brain called the reticular activating system. Now the idea of the RAS is to delete information. So right now there's a fair chance that you weren't thinking about the pulse beating in your ear, or the pressure of the chair on your back, or any sweat or cold that's on your palms. But now that I've mentioned it, you're probably thinking about it. Does that make sense? And it's very hard. You can't beat this thing. I'll give you an example. I want you to not think of stuff in the room that's blue. Don't think about it. What happened? Straight away you look for stuff that's blue, right? Why? Because it became relevant. It was always there. You didn't notice it before I said it, but it was always there. Your mind is continually deleting stuff all the time. So the idea of the reticular activating system is to work out what's relevant to you and what's not. And if gratitude is your biggest state, then guess what? You start noticing ways to be thankful for what you've got. You start appreciating what you've got. And it starts meaning a whole lot to you. See, that what you have in life determines on your actions. But how you feel about it determines on how you control your emotions. Happiness is not determined by what you have in your life. It's determined by how you control those emotions. So we're going to go back to the exercise I said before. I want you to have a goal that you had. And what I'd like you to do is I want you to close your eyes for me, please. And just visualize that goal for a minute. And I want you to visualize it from the point that you have already achieved it. So you are there. I'm going to give you a minute to get that into your mind. Whatever goal it would be for you, whether it be a physical goal, a career goal, maybe you want to improve a relationship with somebody, anything at all. And as you think about the point at which you achieve that goal, and look at it from a first-person perspective, you can see it. I want to notice what you can see. Where are you? What colours can you see? What's happening around you? Who's around you? I want you to notice what you can hear. Create that picture in your mind. What can you hear? Can you hear people talking? Maybe your goal is to explore. Maybe you can hear sounds of a different city, or maybe the wildlife. Maybe there's people praising you and cheering for you. And while you're standing there, I also want you to notice what you can smell and taste. If you're a chef, then smell's going to be a huge thing for you. You can smell the food that you're cooking. And finally, what can you feel? How do you feel? Are you standing up? Are you standing up straight? Are you crouching down? And most of all, I want you to feel what you're feeling inside. What are the emotions saying to you? Are you proud of yourself? Put yourself right in that state where it absolutely, like when you felt like you've had a dream and you wake up and you don't know if it's real or not. Put yourself in that position where you can imagine it 100%. What can you see? What can you smell? What can you hear, taste? Feel on your hands, feel on your body, and what can you feel inside? What are the emotions you're feeling? I want you to hold that state for me, and we're going to repeat those words again for me. Repeat after me. It's possible.
It's possible.
It's possible for me. I'm worthy of my dreams. Okay, I want you to go deeper. See, I can tell the level of imagination you've got in this by the way you respond and the way you talk, because someone who's passionate and talks with passion, I know Tristan over there, keep your eyes closed for me, Tristan. Tristan over there in the corner is a personal trainer, and I see him light up when he does his personal training, and he talks and he yells at people because he's so excited and passionate in what he does. Okay, and that's the way I want you to express how you're feeling and get deeper into that emotion of when you've succeeded. So repeat after me again. It's possible.
It's possible.
It's possible for me.
It's possible for me.
I'm worthy of my dreams. I want you to open your eyes for me. Real quick, stand up, high five someone next to you and say you're awesome. You're awesome. It's important to have fun when you're thinking of these goals, and it's important to visualise what you want. Who here has had a nightmare? How do you feel afterwards? You feel like shit. So is it fair to say that if you imagine your wildest dreams, that afterwards you would feel good? Is that fair? Is it fair to say that that would give you better results, visualizing like that and repeating to yourself that you are worthy of that you would achieve better results than if you didn't do it? Would that be fair? See, your dreams are no different to when you project this image of success. Your nightmares are no different. Faith and fear are exactly the same thing. They're just directed in the opposite direction. All it is your mind looking forward, creating a vivid image of what's going to happen, and sometimes it's negative and sometimes it's positive. But you can absolutely choose which one. So if you can choose, why not just choose the positive one? Well, the reality is, because it's not often promoted in our society. We don't encourage talking about our dreams. Why? Because that makes you a dreamer. And nobody wants a dreamer, right? Everyone wants someone who's dependable, who gets a secure job, who looks after people. That's what's encouraged in our Western society. But the reality is, all that helps us to do is to conform to the societal norms, which is essentially go to work, get a job, retire, die. That's basically the plan, right? More or less. Maybe have 1.5 kids or whatever it is, get a house, pay the mortgage off. By the time you're 65, you might have paid it off if you're lucky. That's basically the plan. So what's happening now is more and more people are encouraging a different plan. Now I'm not going to talk about finances today. That's not what this is about. But finances I do use as an example because it's easy. It's numbers and people can relate to it. And if your goal is finance, then trust me, that is not the plan. Work your butt off, get your superannuation and pull out at 65. Bad plan. So you must visualise success, and you need to do this on an ongoing basis. When you have a nightmare, how long do you feel like shit for? Yeah, until you can change your state of mind. How long does it take to change your state of mind? That's it. Have you ever had that situation where you get upset? Maybe someone really pissed you off. and you hold on to it and you just wish hateful shit on that person. Have you done that? And then you event or you cry. Maybe you've lost something or someone and you cry and cry and cry. And then one day you get to that point where you go, okay, I'm done. I've had enough now. Time to move on. See, it had nothing to do with the event or how hurtful it was. It only had to do with when you made the decision. So the question is, what has to happen for you to make the decision to change or to improve your life? That's the question. It's not how hard the decision is. When you make the decision and feel it in your gut, your life will change, period. It's just what has to happen to make you make the decision. That's really the question. Because once you make that decision, and you can make it that fast, that's all it takes. But sometimes we need a little bit more pain. You know, most humans are pretty sadistic. We need more pain before we start to change. Does that make sense? And this is what I talked about before about being comfortable. So, believing in yourself is one of the hardest things to do. But it's absolutely critical. You know, someone asked me a while ago, you know, what do we do if someone doesn't believe in you? And what I said is, here's the problem. People don't believe in you until you succeed. But you won't succeed until you believe in yourself. You have to believe first before you'll succeed. Otherwise, you'll never do the things that are required to succeed. So you have to believe in yourself. And there's a couple of different ways that I can do this. This is where I get a chance to promote what I do in some of the other areas, which is I do one-on-one coaching. And as an example, one thing that I'll work through is visualization exercises that help people get some energy in what they're doing. And I help you to create incantations. So incantations are something that you would repeat to yourself on a regular basis with congruency. So what that means is if I go, I really want to be a life coach one day, what's my chance of success, of achieving that, of succeeding? It's very, very low. Right? But if you go, I will achieve now, you will get something in you that builds that energy. Does that make sense? I wasn't going to go through this, but I will just quickly. Has anyone seen this before? This triangle state? Triangle of state. State is essentially what I mean, emotional state, the way you feel right now. Everything you do is due to this. How you feel. You've never made a logical decision in your life. Guarantee it. What you did was you made a decision through that, and then you justified it with logic. But all decisions are made through emotion, not through logic. Okay? People like me, I'm a very logical person. I like to think that it's logic. After looking into this coaching stuff for a long time, I realised it had nothing to do with it. That's how I make myself feel better after I've already made the decision. Okay? And here's how you control your state. I'm not going to go into this in a lot of great depth because I didn't plan to cover it. So Google it, you'll find it. Just do triangle state. These are the three things that will determine how you feel. If you control those three things, you will determine how you feel. It's that simple. Okay? Physiology, how you move your body. Okay, quick exercise. How am I feeling?
I'm pretty crappy. No self-esteem.
Tired. Worn out. Okay. How do you know? Congruency. My physiology is always consistent with my body, 100%. Okay? If I did a striptease right now, it's a pretty comic thing. It's not something you'd be attracted to. I guarantee you'd laugh. And I guarantee the sides of your mouth would lift up. How do I know that? Because I know laughter and happiness comes with this expression we call a smile. So your physiology is designed to follow the way you feel, and likewise the other way. If you sit there for a long period of time and don't move, I know you're going to get more stale over the next 90 minutes. But if I get you to move and jump and run around and get excited, then you'll change how you're feeling. And that's why I jump around and move, because I'm excited about what I'm doing. So my physiology reflects that. Does that make sense? So if you sit stale all the time, then that can affect how you feel. The other is your focus. What you focus on. Am I thinking about all the stuff that's bad, or am I thinking about all the stuff that's good? Am I thinking about all the stuff that's holding me back, or am I thinking about all the stuff that's going to be ideas to help carry me forward? What are you focusing on? What do you spend your time thinking about? And then the last is the language. Is this a problem or a challenge? Is this pain or is it an opportunity? Make sense? We can spend a whole day on this, but I'll just leave it there. So when you get a chance, Google that one. So this idea of congruency is that it's a rubber band effect. My body, these things, how I control my mind, pulls in one direction, my emotion will follow it. Unless my emotion is stronger, and then that will pull my physiology towards it. Does that make sense? So if I'm really, really sad, and I just try to move my body in a happy way, but I'm really sad, guess what? You will eventually create a sad posture. But what you can sometimes do is if you create really, really strong actions, then you can sometimes pull your emotion the other way. It's called congruency. Whichever one is strongest will prevail. I want you to have a think about some of these goals and one that you're willing to share with the group. And I'm going to write a couple down. Someone pull one of your goals out for me?
Stop thinking and doing something.
Okay,
Make
so
a decision.
I'm going to
Stop procrastinating.
say decision, action. And what's that going to lead to? What's the ultimate goal for you? Decision towards what?
An outcome.
Yeah, what's the outcome for you?
It will be a positive outcome.
Which
If
one?
I've actually made a decision and done something instead of just ignored it.
Okay, so for your... Actually, this is really good. I'm going to leave that. Someone else want to give you one? I pointed straight to you. I should open it up to everybody. Give me a goal you're working towards. Doesn't matter what it is. It might be a weight goal. It might be a finance goal. It might be something you're trying to get to work. You might be looking to improve the relationship with somebody. Someone else?
Overseas travel.
Sorry?
Overseas.
Overseas travel. Hey, Matt, come in. Shouldn't say that, should I? It's your gym. Okay. What else?
Have a better understanding of the new industry that I'm working in.
Okay, so we've got some learning going on, which is going to lead to clarity, right?
My own business.
Sorry?
My own business.
Your own business. So what's the end goal? The end goal is to start your business? Okay. Someone else? Fitter? Healthier? Yep. I swear that was fitter, not Hitler. Oh, just a quick little thing. I probably should have done this in the introduction. I don't have much political correctness. Tough shit. Who's up?
A better relationship.
Better relationship with someone. Okay, good. I'm going to leave it there. That's enough for us for now. Okay. I'll guarantee you. How many goals do you think there are in the world that people could have? Billions, right? They're essentially come down to 3. It's something you want to be, someone you want to be, an item you want to, a thing, something you want to do, or an item you want to have. All goals are one of those 3 things. Everything. Okay? The problem is that most of us don't usually focus on this one. We just say what we want to do or what we want to have. Okay? So for you, for example, you said something you want to do, which was go overseas. Okay? Fitter and healthier, that's actually something you want to have. Fitter, healthier, it can be, but it's predominantly have. What else? Decision action. This one comes a little bit under this one, and this is why it's a little bit different, which is why I was pushing you a little bit on. Not many people set goals in that way. I set one for myself last year, a B goal. My B goal was to be a person that doesn't let things go. So for example, I would walk down my hallway, see that my kids had left their pyjamas on the floor, and I wouldn't do anything about it. I'd look at it and go, pain in the ass, and keep walking. So I made the decision for me that I was a person that when I noticed something wrong, I would always act on it. That was the kind of person I was going to be. So when you set your goals, I want you to write this down, be, do, have. I want you to set be, do, and have goals. Who are you going to be? What are you going to do? How are you going to invest your time? I hate the word spend your time. We always spend. Try investing. It's much better. Invest your time. And what are you going to have as a result of that? What are the things in your life, the physical things? If anyone wants a notepad, by the way, I bought some here and there's pens up there if that makes it easier. Just feel free to come up and grab one. There's pens up there as well, makes it a little easier, phones or whatever. So, be, do and have. And I want you to think about goals in all the areas of your life. Physicality, your physical body, health, etc. Spirituality, are you connected to something? Career, finance, relationships, in all of those areas you should have a be, do and have goal in all of those areas. And you see how big this can start to become. And then what you do is you prioritise them, of course. You can't focus on more than 3 goals at a time, it's just too hard. Here's the other secret to this. This also is the success principle that will lead you to achieve your goals. Has anybody had the experience where you've got a goal that you want to face? And again, we're in a gym, so I'm going to use the example of losing weight, where you lose it for a while and then you put it back on. And then you lose it for a while and you put it back on. Why does that happen? I know it's the diets, right? They put all the diets out there and this diet doesn't work. Or it's, it's the leg machine or the bike or whatever it is. It's none of those things. So why does that happen? Why do we achieve for a while and then not stick to it? Anyone give me a guess?
Isn't it the emotional effect that it's having on us? And it's
And
an
has the
individual
emotional
thing.
effect. But that doesn't affect everybody.
No,
Some
it's
people
an
achieve.
individual thing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You get on the
For
right
me, I
track.
get comfortable.
You get comfortable.
I lose it, and then I get comfortable. So I stop doing what I need to do. So,
But why are you comfortable? Why are you comfortable with it? You weren't comfortable with it when you started. So why do you get comfortable? Why does it change?
Routine and habit and
Comes routine.
positive.
Why do we let that happen? Okay. So here's the crux that most people get stuck on. It's actually really simple. But most people get stuck on this thing like, I know I should go exercise, but I just can't be bothered. The block is on TV, they're just about to do the auction. I'll do it afterwards. And we get into this state where, what I call a dumb state. Why do we do that? Well, here's why. Because you haven't first done this. So here's what happens. Here's the standard. I'm going to lose some weight. So before I can have this body that I, bring the guns out, something needs to happen. I need to do some stuff. Does that make sense? So before I can have that, I need to do this. What do I need to do? It's pretty simple. More out than in. Not real complicated, right? So what do? We get personal trainers to help us do that, to keep us motivated. We eat better. We exercise more. And we think that eventually that'll get us this. The problem is it only lasts for so long. The reason why it only lasts for so long is because we didn't change that first. You have to change who you are before you will do the things you need to do to have the things you want to have. I'll give you an example. Take an Olympic athlete and ask him to eat a whole pizza. Who thinks that he's likely to do that? Or maybe resist a little. He's going to resist, right? But you take, again I said not politically correct, you take a fat person, what's the chance they're going to do that? Probably pretty good. And let's switch it around. You ask a fat person to go for a 3K run. Get up now, coach. Would they do it? Maybe. Unlikely. But the athlete, what's the chance he's going to do it? Pretty good. Why? What's different? The difference is who they are in their own mind. That action is consistent with their belief for themselves. Here's an example. I want you to imagine that, I'll use you for an example. I say to you, I want you to go over to Julie, and I want you to punch her in the face for $20,000. The fact that she knows martial arts is irrelevant, but we want you to punch her in the face for $20,000. In fact, you need to knock her out. What are the chances that you would do that? Not so much. What if I upped it? Let's say it's $1 million. Would you punch her in the face for $1 million?
absolutely, very hard.
I was going to say.
Alright, let's up the ante. Knife, gun, right? Whatever it is, right? There's a limit for you, right? There's a line that you've drawn for you as to what is appropriate for you. Okay, let's switch it around. So you work for 30 years and you put off family, you put off everything you've ever dreamed of because your goal is to make $1 million. And after 30 years you finally do it. and you go out to the ATM with a briefcase, and you fill it with $1 million, and she walks up and steals it. Now would you punch her in the face?
Sure.
Boom! Alright. So we've learned 2 lessons here, and I'm going to give you another exercise. Why? Here's the second thing. Pain is a bigger motivator than pleasure in the early stages. Pain and pleasure drives you, but pain is a bigger motivator than pleasure short term. It doesn't last as long, but it will get you moving. It'll get you doing things that you wouldn't have done. It'll get your fat ass off the couch, but it won't keep it off the couch. Bingo! Comfort. Right? So here's the problem. You get motivated because you've got pain. You feel like shit. You get up, you get moving. Because pain is very, very strong, but it's only short term. What you need is pleasure as well. You need pleasure and pain goals. I once posted about this on Facebook and someone said to me, your goals include pain. That's dumb. Hell no. Your goals need to have pain in them as well. What will get you moving when it's hard? What will make you feel like shit so that you get up and do it? But also, long term, what will make you feel good when you do it? So you need pain and pleasure, and it needs to be consistent. Okay, on your notepad, I'm going to assume that you have a financial goal. I want you to have a think about next year. What is it you would love to earn? Write a number down. If you haven't got a piece of paper, think about it in your head. What is it you would love to earn? And let's imagine that you actually can earn it. It doesn't matter what the number is. I'm not going to ask you to call it out. It's for you. Everyone got a number? Write a number down. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't care if it's $1, $100 million, it makes no difference. But write down a number. One that you think you could achieve next year.
You can say that first.
Write down something that's reasonable. Okay, now what I'd like you to do. Bearing in mind that you're going to achieve this, I want you to add a 0 to the end. Do that. Is that possible? Could you achieve that? If you had someone show you the ropes, could you achieve that number? If you had a guru come and spend the entire year with you and set up your business or do whatever it is you need to do to achieve that number, is that possible? How many of you still think that number is possible? 1, 2, add a 0 to it. 3. Now? Is it possible? How many of you think it's possible, that new number?
Well, anything's possible.
For you, could you do it next year with the right help?
So 2 zeros now, right?
2 zeros.
Go up to $100.
So here's what happened. You just found the number at which you're going to limit yourself. That's your number. That's the limit of what you believe is possible for you. And it doesn't matter whether it's money, weight, it makes no difference. When I see you write down that number and you go, yeah, right. Guess what? That's your number. That's your maximum potential. Doesn't matter what the number is. The point is that you've limited yourself to that number. And it's the same for any goal. Why? Because it is not consistent with your view for yourself. That's it. That's the whole deal. All you have to do to achieve better results is change the image of yourself. Who are you as a person? You have to do that first, because otherwise you'll never do the things that are required to have it. Simple as that. Be, do, have. You must do it in that order. So any goals that you've got, I want you to think to yourself, what sort of person would achieve that goal, and who do I have to be to achieve that goal? Does that make sense? Yeah? Don't limit yourself. Here's the order it comes in. I'm going to finalise this section. But you say, I worked at it, I worked at it, I worked at it, and I worked at it for a while, I achieved some results, and then I went straight back. Here's why. Here's the hierarchy. And I've just recently come up with this, so I have to refer my notes. Most of these are my own, by the way. Whoops, there's only one B, isn't there? Thank God it's not an English lesson. write these down. Sound like Dan Oliver, don't I? Okay, that's the order. So when you're working your butt off to get off the couch and you feel like crap and you're going, but I know it's good for me, you're here. Discipline. Doesn't work long term, but it will get your butt off the couch. It will get your butt into that course that you need to for your job. It will get your butt to call up that friend and go, hey, how about we go for a coffee? Because I want to improve that relationship. It will get you putting posters on your wall of the places you want to go. So you look at it and go, oh, that's where I'm going. It will do something for you. Discipline. But it has to move this way. Start off with your purpose, and this will all flow. The next is discipline. The next from there is motivation. You've got some movement about you. You have some drive to go, some drive to do it. It's not just a task now. And what happens is when you continue with motivation, you end up with a habit. And when it comes a habit, that is, you don't have to think about it. I mentioned Richard Branson before. He doesn't think about starting up a new business. He just goes and does it. When you get to that point, you get sustained success. If you don't do these, then all you get is that temporary success. And you'll go straight back where you were. You've got to change who you are. Make sense? And that's right, you get this yo-yo effect. That's exactly why. Because the person is still the same. Now I mentioned before, what's your mind's #1 job? It's to keep you safe. How does it do that? Remember I mentioned this congruency, emotional state, and all those other things of focus. How does it do that? By making you comfortable. When you grow and when you stretch, you're not comfortable. So what does your mind try to tell you? This is painful, it's hard. So what do? You put in discipline. The problem is that's only short term. Pain is short term. You have to bust through the pain until it's no longer painful. You need it to be positive in the long term. So you need both. Pain to get you moving, pleasure to keep you moving. If you have just one, you don't succeed. It's that simple. It doesn't matter what the goal is. The human behaviour is exactly the same. All I'm talking about is human behaviour. The thing is irrelevant. So you get to this point and you go, well, that's great, but I don't feel worthy. I don't believe in myself. I've done all the things you've told me to. I've done the incantations. I do it every day with congruency. You'll notice now as I get more passionate through my talk, I get louder and more up front, right? And the same should happen with you when you're passionate. So you get to you've done all the things and you still don't believe in yourself. What do you do then? Fake it. Fake it until you believe in yourself. You need to make your move before you're ready. Don't wait until you're ready. How many of you here have got kids? How many of you were 100% ready when they came? Did they turn out okay? Of course they did. You find a way, right? If you wait until you're ready, it's too late. Go now. Move now. And then figure out a way as you go. I'll give you an example. This is my notes for the hour and a half. I have about 20 dot points, 15 dot points. I have no idea exactly how this speech will turn out. But go. You don't need to be great to get started. But you do need to start to become great. You have to start. And so, I mentioned Les Brown before. One of his favourite quotes that I love is he says, I'll get you to repeat this after me. Leap. Come on, you do better than that. Leap.
Leap.
And grow your wings on the way down. Right. And that's what you need to do. You need to leap. Take the leap of faith. Remember, faith and fear are no different, so why be scared? They're exactly the same thing. Just point it in the other direction and off you go. It's that simple. Don't worry about believing in yourself. Leap anyway. And then you'll have to find a way. And when you get to that point, you'll succeed. So if you can believe in yourself, it'll get you there far better. But if at the end of the day you can't believe in yourself, just go anyway. You have to go. You have to start before you can be great. I remember I used to hate going to the dentist. I remember going there, I was 9 years old, and they put some plastic on the roof of my mouth. I had this big frame. I still don't know what that was. Someone's told me once, I don't remember. And ever since then, I never went to the dentist. Didn't brush my teeth probably for years. And so I had this idea that I hadn't looked after my teeth. hadn't been to the dentist for a while. Just side note, how many of your RAS now has got you to focus on my teeth? That's your RAS, right? It's now relevant. How many of you noticed my teeth before? None, right? So anyway, so I used to hate going to the dentist. I wouldn't go to the dentist is the better point. Because I envisage in my head now that I hadn't looked after my teeth for years, I'd never been to the dentist, I'm going to be up for thousands, and it's going to hurt like hell. Because I didn't remember going to the dentist. And I told myself this story for a long time. And what happens is you justify it. Oh, I haven't got time. Can't afford it. Haven't got money. Hang on a minute, I'll get a brain buster idea. Here's the expert of procrastination. I'll get private health cover. And then in 12 months, I can go to the dentist. I bought myself another 12 months by getting private health cover. That's all I really wanted. I didn't want the private health cover. I just wanted the 12 months so I could keep giving myself an excuse not to go to the dentist. Does that make sense? So sure enough, the 12 months rolls around. Did I call the dentist? No. When did I call the dentist? You got it. When there was enough pain. Right back here, on this side. I still feel it now. And I went in and I finally made the phone call. Finally made the phone call. They said, you need a root canal. I'm freaking out. It's going to cost me thousands. It's going to hurt like shit. So I went in, they put 2 jabs in the gum. Did the root canal, that's fine. Largely up, just uncomfortable. And then the only real effect after that was I kept dribbling my cup of tea all over my shirt when I went back to work, which was a dumb idea. I couldn't talk properly because your face feels like it's out here. You guys had that before? Your face feels like it's out here. So, between 9 and 32, I told myself I shouldn't go to the dentist. And the actual pain was 3 minutes of pain and about 160 bucks. Was the fear bigger than the event? You bet. Have you had fear that's bigger than the event as it turns out to be? Yeah, your mind's designed to do that because it's trying to protect you. You've got to leap past your fear. You've got to be hungry for what you want. I'm going to give you another quick story. I used to go do a bit of rock climbing with my dad. My dad and I were really close, and we'd go up to Murray Altar and do some in various different places. And I remember I was climbing up this rock face, and I get to this point. Has anyone rock climbed, by the way? You should do it. It's good fun. Hard, but good fun. So we get up to this point, and it's like this, right? It's a dead flat wall. I'm looking at it just going, no way. I was about 12 years old at the time. And so my dad's down the bottom, and he's encouraging me, come on, you can do it, you can do it, you can get past, up you go, up you go, up you go. Could not find a way. So I eventually get to that point. I don't know, it felt like I was up there for about an hour, probably about 3 minutes, I don't know. But it felt like a long time. And I get to that point where I've just gone, I can't do it, bring me down. Because we're on a road. Bring me down, I can't do it. Now my dad knew me really well, I'm relatively defiant. And he also knows that I need his approval a lot. He would never tell me off. He would just tell me he was disappointed in me and I'd just break down in tears. That's all it ever took. So he goes, oh fine, just quit then, you're useless. Wow. I found a way. Because for me, ultimate pain was his disapproval. That was ultimate pain. He goes, fine, just quit. And I'm pretty defiant anyway. So what I found was a crack in this wall. It's only about yay big. And for those of you who haven't climbed, what you do is you stick your fingers in, you kind of arch your hands like that, and you wedge your feet and you climb it up. A bit like Spider-Man. And so I got to the top, and I touched the carabiners, the things up the top, and it was a feeling like I'd never felt before. Because I didn't know how to get there. But I found a way. I found this tiny little crack and worked my way up to it and touched the carabiners, and I just went, oh, awesome. And so he lowers me down, you know, good job, pat on the head, you know, I'm feeling pretty amazing. Dad's turn. Clip him on, up he goes, gets to this point and goes, oh shit. Don't know how to go up. See, I had a big enough reason to get there. How many of you think he made it? Put your hands up if you think he made it. He made it. Why did he make it? Because he had an expectation that he would make it. His son made it. He's 12. He'd have to. That makes sense? So if you expect that you will succeed, you'll succeed. This training is given to salespeople all the time. They go up with their product and say, oh, look, you wouldn't want to buy these, would you? No one ever buys it. But if they stand in front, mate, this is the best thing. What are you doing without one of these? Like, you need one. If they have an absolute expectation that you'll buy, they've got a much better chance of you buying. I guarantee it. Okay? And the same happens with you. Have that expectation that you'll succeed and you'll succeed. But the other lesson I learned from that is also be careful how you criticise. See, he had really good rapport with me, obviously, as his son. And he could say, you're friggin' useless. I want to be a little bit careful. But criticism is very good, but they can be very, very dangerous as well. See, the thing for him was, failure wasn't an option. When he saw that crack, when he saw me get up, the idea that he wouldn't make it never entered his mind. Write down the name Roger Bannister. How many of you have heard of him before? What can you tell me about it?
No, that's okay. No, he's a running.
Running athlete. What was special about him? There's lots of running athletes.
Yeah, that's
Oh, okay, so here's the story. How long humans been around? I don't know, millions, right? Never in history had anyone run a mile in 4 minutes. Ever. And so the doctors said, the human body physically does not have the muscle capacity to run at a mile in 4 minutes. It physically cannot do it. Now, look up the exact stats, because it's only, back of my head, but the day he ran that 4-minute mile, a whole heap, like hundreds within the next year, had run a 4-minute mile. They hadn't done it for millions of years before. And then all of a sudden, everybody could do it. Not everybody, the elite athletes, but you get the idea, right? Hundreds of people around the year, and since then, it's been smashed. How is that possible when we couldn't do it for millions of years before? How is that possible? Because they expected it was possible. Nothing changed with the human body. Someone did it, it was all of a sudden possible. If you believe it's possible. No matter what doctor told him it wasn't possible, he did it. And then everybody else could do it without too much training. The only thing that stopped him was belief. That's it. That's the only thing that held him back. So when failure is not an option for you, success naturally occurs. Darkness is the absence of light, right? So failure is the absence of success. How do you fail? You stop. That's it. You don't stop, you don't fail. It's simple as that. And what I found in my life was that anything that I really, really wanted, I would achieve. But for the stuff that I just kind of wanted, not really. A lot of things I'd really like that. Use the word like, not going to get it. But it must happen, that's going to happen. So the way you perceive it. There's a story I'm going to tell, you can find it around, it's a common story, but I love it. There's a guy who, he wants to be an investment banker, but he wants to get into this firm that's very, very hard to get into. So he contacts one of the guru guys, one of the amazing people. He says, I need you to get me into this firm. And he says, you really want to get into the firm? Yeah, I really want to get into the firm. Okay, no worries. Well, I want you to meet me at the beach tomorrow at 5:30 AM. Okay, that's a bit strange. It's investment banking, but okay, whatever. So he goes out to the beach, and he's standing on the sand, and he's looking around. He can't see the old man anywhere. And he's looking, and walks down, and says, what the hell? He's 5:30 in the morning, it's freezing bloody cold, and he's standing in water up to here, the old man. So he said, come on, come. He's got no papers. He's in his suit. Come on, walk. Alright, this old man's crazy. So he walks out to the water, he's up to here. But as he walks out to the old man keeps walking further out. And he keeps chasing him. And he gets up to here. He gets out a little further, and he says, come on. He's like, oh man, you're crazy. Come on, you want this? You come out here. And so he finally gets out and he comes up to here like this. And he's standing next to the old man. And the old man doesn't say a thing. He grabs his hair and slams it into the water and holds him there for like 2 minutes. Picks him back up out of the water. The young man can hardly breathe. Straight back in, holds him down for another minute. Pulls him back out. And the young man's like, straight back in. Comes out, the guy's nearly dead. He says, what are you thinking about? He's like, breathing. He said, right, when you want that thing as much as you need oxygen, then you'll get what it is that you want. It is that simple. When you want that goal as much as you want to breathe, when nothing else matters, then you will achieve what it is that you want. It's got nothing to do with the goal. It's got to do with the fact that that's all he could focus on. That was the only thing. If you live, breathe, sleep, eat shit, everything, that thing that you want, then you get it. It's that simple. And he held him down there, and the only thing he thought about was air. He said, when you want to get into this firm as bad as you want air right now, then you will succeed. It's that simple. One of my favourite stories. So how do you get there? All of these things I've talked about doing it on your own. There's a common saying, success is a team sport. You can't do it on your own. I couldn't do this without Matt and Rachel's help. I need a room. That makes sense? So, we couldn't do it without Facebook. Facebook helped us. Someone else created Facebook, not us. So success is a team sport. I want you to repeat this after me. E-R-O. Let's go. E-R-O. Here's what it is. Empowering relationships only. Repeat that after me. Empowering relationships only. Absolutely critical. MIT did a study some time back, about 30 years ago, and what they found was that you are the average of the 6 people you spend time with. So look around at your peers. I guarantee you're the average of them. The level of conversations they have, the level of activities they engage in, even the level of money they make. The number is $3,000. Now that's a pretty old number, so probably a little bit more widespread than that. $3,000 you earn within $3,000 of most of your peers. Would it then not stand to reason that if you improve the level of peers that you have, that you'll improve what your potential is? Yeah, why? It's again about this congruency. The level of conversations you have. Let's say you're really striving for a goal. This is the biggest thing I had to overcome to become a coach. Nobody else understands your vision, what you see. Matt, when you created this gym and said, we're going to quit both our jobs, mortgage up to the hilt, and we're not going to have an income for 12 months, did you have some people that said you were crazy?
Oh, yeah.
And this is the problem. Because sometimes you listen to those people. Why? Because you love them. You love them for who they are. But the problem is the more people you have that are not at the level that you either want to be or are on their way, then the more you can get dragged down, because they're going to say, man, what are you doing, man? Like, seriously. Or you might have a goal to, let's say, create that business. Come out with us. Come on, come out with us. Let's go to the cafe. Let's go watch a movie. Oh, look, I can't. I've got to study. No. Come on, do that later. It's a different level of thought, you see? And so I want you to think about having those empowering relationships only. It's uncommon. 95% of people do not understand what it is that successful people want, nor how to get there. 95% of people are vaguely happy at best, and usually broke. So here's the problem. Empowering relationships are hard to find. You need to be uncommon in order to find those. You need to be unreasonable in your expectations, and you need to actively seek people that are going to inspire you. This is what happened to me. What did I do? I went to see another coach. I didn't have any friends that were entrepreneurs or that ultra successful. So what did I do? I paid for one. I paid for someone to have a better relationship with. I've got some people that I love, but none of them were doing what I wanted to do. So I paid for that relationship instead. I want you to think about some of the people in your relationships and think of it like a tree. What happens when you have dead branches on a tree? What do? Let's say you care about the tree. Why do you do that? Why not just leave them there?
Because it makes the tree healthy and it's dangerous.
Yeah. It pulls that tree backwards, right? So what you've got to do is you've got to trim the tree so that the good stuff can grow underneath. So that it can get better. But if you never trim off the dead leaves, then it hampers the growth of that tree. Does that make sense? So what I'm asking you to do is to look at your family tree and your friend tree and trim a few branches. And focus on the ones that are empowering for you. If you owned a business, you would do it every day. You would look at the business, you'd look at the balance statement and you go, that's an asset, that's a liability. Do I need that liability? No. Gone. And the asset, you would want to work that to its best. Everyone agree with that? But we don't do that in our personal lives. We don't work out what attributes of myself are an asset or a liability, and certainly not what attributes of my friends and family are an asset or a liability, and which ones should be cut. Now, can you change them? It's hard enough changing yourself. You're not going to be able to change anybody else. So you need to look at the people that are around you and who are going to inspire you, and how can you spend time with more people like that. And I know what you're thinking. Well, hang on, I can't just dump my family. I can't just dump my friends. It doesn't work that way. I understand. What you can do is spend more time with the ones that are good for you and less time with the ones that are bad for you. And I'm not necessarily saying just that goal, but general conversations. People that are good for you. Here's the other thing you can do. Where do we get our principles and our backgrounds? Let's say, for example, how many of you here had active training in how to handle money? So academic training in how to handle money. Nobody? Me neither. So where did you learn to handle money?
Through experience.
Through experience?
From other people.
Family,
Family?
parents.
Parents? This is where we usually learn most of our stuff. How did you learn how to treat people?
Family.
Family. Okay. Building relationships. The number one skill in all business is relationships. Over all else, relationships is number one. Who taught you how to build relationships? You all have relationships. You have people you talk to, right? You've all got relationships. Where did you learn?
Relationships.
Yeah, you learn from the other people that you associate with. So here's the problem. We take financial advice from people that are broke, i.e. your parents. They might be broke, or not have a lot of money, and certainly not be where you want to be. We take relationship advice from people that don't have the best relationship. How many of you have heard scenarios where people will give marriage advice and then divorced? It happens, right? Another one for you, the most expensive thing you will ever buy is free advice. The most expensive thing you'll ever buy. Be very careful of the free advice you get, and question everything you get, and figure out if that's going to be good for you. Be very, very careful who you listen to. And look for people that are energetic and inspiring, and people that want to push you forward and drive you forward and have a good time. You know, how many of you have gone to work and you go, "How you going?" "Oh, I'm alright." You experienced that before? "Oh, thank God it's Friday." Or hump day, that's my favourite. Hump day is where it's the start of the day where I focus the next 3 days on how shit it can be so that I can have 2 good ones. How dumb is that? Poor relationships, poor conversations. Improve your level of conversation, you'll improve your results. What happens is, when you have people like that, they're going to inspire you, they're going to push you when you're down. And what you must do is you're going to keep going. I'm going to give you one more story. There was a tribe in Africa, and legend got around that they did this rain dance. And no matter what season it was in the middle of Africa, whenever they danced, it would rain. And so as you can imagine, it got out all over the news that these guys had a 100% success rate of bringing the rain to when they danced. So they sent some reporters out there, and nothing happened. But one stayed with them, and he stayed, and he stayed. And then one day they decided they're going to do this rain dance. So they went out and they danced, and sure enough, it rained. And it wasn't the way they moved their bodies, it wasn't the way they sang, it wasn't the way they interrelated with the other people or the musical instruments they played. There was one other thing that made sure that all of those other things, that it would always rain when they danced. Anyone guess what that was?
Clouds in the sky.
They understood nature and signs that rain was coming.
It was that they kept dancing until it rained. That's what I'm urging you to do, keep dancing until it rains. It had nothing to do with what they were doing, but they believed that if they danced it would rain, and that they could bring the seasons. It doesn't matter where in the world you are, you cannot bring the rain. This is reality. But they believed they could. And as long as they kept dancing, then they were successful in bringing the rain 100% of the time. And that's what you have to do with your goals. I'm going to give you, we're getting close to the end now, I'm going to give you some actual content. I call this this my D's to change. If you're looking to change something in your life, these are the sequences that you need to go through. The first one is this. If you don't have this, it's game over. Desire. You must have desire. There must be something burning in you. If you're sitting here listening to me and going, yeah, that kind of nice, ain't going to happen. So if you're that point where you go, this has to change starting today, that's that level of that congruency that I'm talking about. Where you go, I'm gonna walk out of here and I'm gonna do something today. No more. When you reach that level of desire, I want this to be better. I can imagine a better life for me. You all sat before and imagined that goal. The only thing in the way of that goal is you. So if you get to that point and you go, I want that so bad, I'm going to work my guts out for it, I'm going to eat, breathe, sleep, shit, all the rest of it for that goal, that's your first step, desire. That will drive most things. Now, I asked you before, or rather you volunteered about losing weight, and you said that you do it for a while and go back, and do it for a while and go back. And you said because you get comfortable. I mentioned earlier about be, do, have. The reason you got comfortable sitting on the couch is because you never truly believed that you were that skinny, fit person in your mind. Because guess what happens? Remember I've mentioned congruency. When you change who you believe you are in your head, sitting on the couch is no longer comfortable. That's uncomfortable. So you have to change. That's why you keep going back in your goals, because you haven't changed who you are. So if sitting on your butt is part of who you are, you know, I've got a friend that says, I'm fat, I like being fat, I love food, it's good. Good on him! That's who he wants to be. He's being who he wants to be. Leave him alone, that's who he is. But if that's not you, then you've got to change the image for yourself. So I'm not saying you have to be anything. But if there is something you want, you've got to really want it. And you've got to change the fact that you believe it's already you. Desire is the first one. Without that, you get nowhere. The next one. How many of you have had New Year's resolutions?
Never.
Never? I love New Year's resolutions. They're terrible. Most of us go, well, that was shit, I'll achieve them next year. They don't get anywhere. But some people do make the right step with their New Year's resolutions. They do write them down. They don't know how to write them down, but they do write them down. My goals, I didn't bring an example here. My goals, when I get you to write them down, are usually about 3 pages long for each one. So if you say to me, I want to travel, 3 pages of text in the morning. You write it that way, you'll get that baby. It's simple. So goals are a big thing. So writing them properly is a skill. It's a skill that I teach, but it's not easy. Nothing worthwhile is easy. So you've got to at least write them down and write why you want it. Not just what you want, but why do you want it. And just don't just say because it'd be cool. At the end of the day, we haven't got time today, but at the end of the day, there's only really 6 things that you want. And it comes down to one of those 6 things. Every goal comes down to one of those 6 things that you want. The next is, and I mentioned this, before you have the habit, you need discipline. Following discipline, which is driven by your purpose, I mentioned before, or your desire, will come motivation. You will get to a point where after a while you're going, you know what, I actually like this stuff. I actually like studying. I actually like going to the gym. I actually like saving my money so that I can go on that trip. I actually like doing the things. And out of that becomes your habit. Okay? But most importantly, a daily habit. If you don't do something towards it every single day, give up now. You must do something towards its achievement every day. And if that's nothing less than reaffirming why you want this, sitting down, visualizing what it is you want, and reading through your incantations that I mentioned before, then that's just your daily habit. I have what I call an hour of power. Okay, it's Tony Robbins' term. 30 minutes of Thrive, 15 minutes of something else, I forget what he calls it. An hour of power where I sit down every morning, I get up at 5:30, my kids get up at 6:30, and I read But 15 minutes, and I spend 45 minutes reading my goals, setting actions, and planning out my day. It's not hard. You can invest that time. There's something you could do. As I said, 15 minutes at minimum. Spend 15 minutes every single day reviewing what it is you truly want. At least 15 minutes. Who here could not invest 15 minutes? Okay, slightly off track. How much time could you invest to your goals? Pick a goal you had. How much could you invest?
Not daily.
Daily?
Now.
An hour? Just give me a couple of answers. Doesn't matter what it is. Whatever it takes. Okay. See, here's one of the stories, and one of the most common stories you hear against people's goals. I don't have time. I don't have time. Here's the truth. That millionaire, that super fit athlete, that amazing person who also has 2 kids but managed to start a new business, they also had 24 hours. Everybody has the same amount of time. You get 168 hours in a week. It's how you use that 168 hours that's key. Don't ever say you don't have time. What you can say is that this is not enough of a priority to consume my time. That's true. But it's never that you don't have time. The most successful and the least successful people on the planet have the same amount of time. Time is never a factor. It's priority. And when you're doing your daily habit, I want you to think of these 2 things. What can you delegate to someone else? Especially those of you who have a business goal. Don't try to do everything. I learned this a while ago. Hire experts, don't be Scrooge. Delegate. Okay? And what can you duplicate? So what this means is, delegate. What can you give to somebody else? What I did a while back when I was trying to achieve a goal was I didn't have the discipline to keep myself accountable. So what I did was I publicly announced what my goal was. Another one I did when I started this coaching business is I plastered my coaching name across my car. You'll see it out there. It's got NAVASPIRE right across the side. Because I knew that it would be shameful for me to take that off one day if I didn't succeed. So for me, significance is one of my 6 core needs. There's only 6, as I said. And for me, I felt like crap if I didn't achieve. So I made sure I made it public that I was trying. So I was forced to succeed. So sometimes you can delegate the responsibility of keeping you accountable to somebody else. I'm going to give you, this is what I did with one of my people that I work with that's losing weight. I would speak to them every Wednesday morning. What's your weight? Every Wednesday morning. We've been doing that for over 12 months. This person's lost over 50 kilos. I didn't do a single physical workout with them. Not for the purpose of losing weight. It's about changing this. The other is duplicate. There's a lot of great people before us. Duplicate. You know, there's an old saying, I forget who it came from, that it says, if I can see farther than others, it's having only stood on the shoulders of giants. Read, research, use other people's. Don't try to do everything yourself. Find mentors, find people that have already done it. If you befriend them, they'll be more than willing to help you. And if you can't do that, pay for it. But duplicate what's already been done. Don't try and reinvent everything yourself. And that doesn't just mean business. If it's, again, losing weight, I talk about this because we're in a gym, then find someone who's lost the weight. Or find someone that's on that journey and duplicate what they're doing. It's working for them. And the last one is, if it all goes to shit, deviate. Deviate your destination, deviate your direction. Do not deviate your destination. I mentioned about the plane, always makes it up. How many of you get to work, or go to work in the morning, and go, oh, I'd really like to make it there today. I'd really like to get there. How many of you do that? No. Because you have that expectation that I talked about. Now, what happens if, road closure, what do? Swear. You get frustrated. Then what happens? You detour, you find another way. You do a complete U-turn if you have to, and you find another way. And you might be a little bit late. But the thought of not making it to work just never enters your mind. Why? Pain. You don't get paid. You have a pretty strong motivation to get there, right? So always deviate the plan, but never deviate the end goal. Why do I say that? I said congruency, right? Your mind is very clever. It teaches you, tries to keep you comfortable. Your mind is an expert at making up excuses. How many of you have had a goal, didn't quite make it and go, oh, I'll just go for this goal over here. I've done it. We've all done it. Guess what? You deviated because you gave in. Your brain tried to keep you comfortable. It's doing its job. But to stretch, you've got to beat that a little bit. So always deviate if it's not working. Go right back to the top if you have to. But don't deviate what it is you really want. Don't give up on that. Decide what it is you really want. And go for it. No matter what happens. I'm going to give you an assignment to finish off. Oh my, I don't believe that shit. I'm going to give you an assignment to finish up. I want you to write down at least 5 reasons why you're going to achieve your goal. I don't care what the goal is, I only care about why you're going to achieve it. What does it mean for you? And don't say because that Ferrari would be really cool in my driveway. The real reason is because you think you look pretty cool in a Ferrari. That's the real reason. So whatever that goal is, I want you to write down 5 reasons why. And I want you to write down 5 things that will happen that if you don't achieve it, that are negative. What will happen if you don't achieve it? What will you really feel? Who will you let down? Write down those 5 things. Why will you achieve it? And 5 things that will happen if. And notice the language I'm using. Why you will achieve it, and what happens if you don't. You see where I'm putting the stronger language? As opposed to, why should you achieve it, and what happens when you don't. You see the language difference? One of the things I work through is, as I said, a goal setting workshop. I strongly recommend that you work through that with me. The idea is New Year's. It's a great time for us to do that. As I said, a lot of people set New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions are a good thing. Most people just don't know how to write them. And there's a really good opportunity for you to do that by working through with me some of that. As I said, the idea of today was a couple of things. One is I want to help Matt and Rachel promote the gym. You know, the gym for me is an opportunity. You know, for some people a gym is friendship. For some people a gym is fitness and health. You know, for some people a gym is an escape from the kids. It can be anything for different people, right? And I know, a couple of us here into the martial arts, and martial arts is the same thing. But for me, the gym is an opportunity. And what you get out of it is completely up to you, and this is exactly the same thing. Coming here and exposing yourself to some different ideas, maybe different to what you think about, it means nothing unless you want to apply it. Knowledge, people say knowledge is power. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is potential power if it's applied. So the question is what are you going to do differently? What's stirred up in you to go, I would like something different for me. I would like to stretch for that holiday, or be fitter and healthier, or start that business. What is it that's going to cut you over that line to say, I'm going to go for it? And what help do you need to get there? Don't do it on your own. Find a mentor. Find a friend that's going to push you and drive you for when the times get tough. Obviously, I can be one of those friends. So one of the things I do is I do one-on-one in-depth coaching. I'm not going to tell you too much about that. I don't want to ruin the event. There's information about that on the DVD I've given you. If you haven't got a DVD, grab one for yourself, please. It's partially me telling you about what I do, but the majority of it is actually me giving you another set of theories like this that you can work through on your own. So please take that, and I hope you work through that as well. Again, thank you for coming along. I really appreciate it. The money that you've donated, if you haven't, please make sure you donate, goes towards the CFS, or if we can't give it to them because they're a bit funny about donations now, we'll give it to the Humbug Scrub Foundation. So thank you for that. Again, thank you again to Matt and Rachel for having us here. For those of you who don't know, I want you to see this fantastic facility. Matt and Rachel have put their absolute lives on hold, quitting their jobs, mortgaging up to the hill to create this gym. And this gym is all about people. Right? I sat down, I spoke with Matt and Rachel, and I said, why are you different? You got jets over the road, right? Why are you different? He said, because we actually care about the people. You know, they're trying to create an environment where you can have a life coach who's going to work through this plan with you. It's not just, hey, here's a cycle, a bike, go and ride. But what does it actually mean as a human being? They've got a place where you can get that help, who's going to push you and drive you through. You can go and speak to someone about nutrition. You can go and speak to someone about physiotherapy. You can go and get a personal trainer. That's what this place is all about. So if you haven't come here and you don't live an hour and a half away, then I strongly recommend that you speak to the guys and spend some time here. So I'd like to really say thank you to you guys for letting me be here and pass on some of this stuff.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Well, welcome. Thank you guys. That's it. Thank you very much. If you do want to get in touch, my details are on the DVD. You can take a card. I'm here. If anyone wants to come and talk to me, please come and talk to me. I'm approachable. So I'm willing to talk about anything that I've gone through so far. Thank you guys. Thanks for coming.